All right, what is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Mets Weekly Podcast as we are live at this very moment on YouTube and on X to recap the Mets versus Cubs series, along with all of the latest news and rumors in New York Mets land. We've got plenty to get into, as I'm sure everybody knows the news by now. But before we get into all of it, I want to remind everyone to subscribe to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel for new episodes of our show that are recorded live after every single regular season series. For those of you watching or listening on playback, you want to join the conversation in the future, make sure to turn on those post notifications to know when we go live. Make sure to follow Mets Weekly on X and on TikTok. For our audio listeners, make sure to follow us on all your favorite listening platforms to not miss the audio version of new episodes that go up at 9 a.m. the following day. Also, make sure to give us a 5-star review. It would be greatly appreciated. So without further ado, let's get into episode number 219 of our show. And guys, we are just going to jump right into it, as I'm sure everybody knows of the latest news over the past 3 hours that just dropped before we went live here. The New York Mets have fired Carlos Mendoza after 2.5 seasons, exactly at the 81-game mark. And we've got plenty to get into in terms of this. Now, obviously, the Mets, coming into the season, brought back Carlos Mendoza with a new coaching staff. There was a new core of players that brought in, and we talked about it, of the certain fact of them having him as a lame duck manager with his contract not renewed. So he was definitely the guy who was going to be in the line of fire. However, when you look at from how the Mets have kind of treated this and how the Mets have gone away with this, all it does is add more frustration. No more relief for me. Carlos Mendoza, I don't think, has done a good job with this team. I really don't think he has, especially in this previous season so far, towards the end of last year as well. I don't think he did. However, there comes to a point where other guys need to be held responsible. And listen, I am going to hold Carlos Mendoza responsible as well, because I don't think he's innocent in all of this. And the way that it's kind of being perceived at this current moment is basically just seeing him as some kind of victim who was put in, this certain situation. And there's no blame to go around to Carlos Mendoza. There's plenty of blame to go to Carlos Mendoza. And everybody knows that. However, everybody has a short-term memory in the New York media, and they don't realize the certain process that goes through right now, to where not only is it, what does he actually do, or what has he actually done on the field? It's also the fact of what he hasn't done and what a manager is supposed to do, and he hasn't been able to do that. So I'm going to get into all of that from both sides. Either way, let me say it right now. Carlos Mendoza, firing him 81 games into the season, it is too late. And that goes on David Stearns. The Mets obviously had a 12-game losing streak, had multiple losing streaks, multiple 7-game losing streaks last year with the old team. That was probably the time to do it. The Phillies did it, so did the Red Sox in the same week, and we were all just like, okay, well, what is Mendoza doing here? Because in comparison, Rob Thompson took the Phillies to the World Series. Cora's got a ring with the Red Sox. So what exactly is the excuse for keeping Carlos Mendoza here? David Stearns then doubles down on it, saying, hey, Carlos Mendoza is doing a great job. I'm not going to answer questions. Remember that little sassy tone right there? Remember that? Oh, I'm not going to answer questions about this every 2 weeks. And then all of a sudden, he's fired after 81 games. And to be honest, I thought that at the rate that this was going, I thought his option was going to get picked up for next season. I really thought so at that rate that they were going, because it seemed like they were so hell-bent on having Carlos Mendoza as the manager. Do I agree with doing that? No, because I don't think he's done a good job. Either way, the way that they went about this was all wrong, and that's on David Stearns. However, before we even get into David Stearns, because he's obviously the next guy in the line of fire, and he should be, as someone who, allowed David Stearns to do his job and didn't want to sit here and attack every single thing yet until the results came out. Well, the results have come out. They haven't been good. So I'm going to go after David Stearns too. Don't worry. Don't worry, guys. I am not the Stearns shill that everybody says I am. We'll get there in a second. In terms of Carlos Mendoza, you cannot look me straight in the eye and tell me he did not have at least some fault in this. You can say that he is not the guy completely at fault. Sure, go ahead and do it. Because you know what? I believe that as well. It's not just him. But we come into a constant debate where, again, how we can talk about it in society, like not guilty doesn't mean innocent. Carlos Mendoza is not innocent. And we have seen this from a day-to-day basis. In terms of what the manager is supposed to do these days, it's a lot different of a role. We get it. I understand that. And maybe some people see it as a puppet role. It's about being a leader in that clubhouse. And from what we saw from Carlos Mendoza, he wasn't a leader. Never was. And it seemed like when you pick things out of its certain context, it didn't seem like he had a grasp on that team for a majority of his tenure here. And it does go to show. Remember, 2024, they started off awful. They were terrible. Something clicked at the end of May. They get Jose Iglesias in here, the whole grimace stuff, and it gets fully recovered. You get the veterans in here. JD Martinez saying, hey, let's suck together if we're going to suck. The way they rallied around Jose Iglesias. Now, unless Carlos Mendoza wrote Jose Iglesias' song, oh my God, and we've been living a lie for 2 years. I don't think that you can say, oh yeah, there's nothing to blame here. They collapsed in 2025, not playing great baseball for a majority of that season. And we were pointing it out last year. That team, when they were 21 games over 500, one of the best records in all of baseball, I think they were the best record in all of baseball. We were saying, hey, if they keep playing baseball like this, they're going to collapse. We're going to go into a bad direction. Because if you watched how this team played baseball, the constant mental mistakes, the constant lack of attention to detail, you can't say that doesn't fall on the manager. You can't say it. I'm sorry. Especially when you get rid of all of the coaches the next year, coming into this year. You keep the manager. You bring in an entire staff of new players as well. The position player personnel is gone from last year. You keep Lindor and Soto. That's it. Your opening day lineup looks completely different. And we still have the same problems. The mental errors. The defensive lapses. Something we saw in this series, which we'll get into later, because we have plenty to get into beforehand. You cannot tell me that he is fully innocent in this. And the main reason as to why it sparks the full interest here is how the media is perceiving it as we currently speak. It's still going on Twitter as we speak right now. The Mets media heads, the SNY writers, basically shoveling it down our throats that Carlos Mendoza has no fault in this, and it's not his fault whatsoever. Ignoring the common denominators that I just point out, of how these are different players, different coaches, ignoring those common denominators, ignoring all of the ignoring he does of holding players accountable. They're sitting here and telling me, oh, well, Carlos Mendoza's a great guy. He does his taxes. He recycles his plastic. Good for him. We don't need that for a baseball team. Those types of skills we don't need. I don't need to hear that. If you actually watched how things were perceived under Carlos Mendoza, you'd understand why he was fired. Now, is he the guy that needs to get fired? No. He's not the guy at main fault here. He isn't, okay? I'm telling you guys right now. But you can't tell me he is 100% innocent in this situation. You can't. It's impossible to do so. There's so many different instances where he had a opportunity to be a leader and chose not to. You're acting like are we acting like he actually had a grasp on that clubhouse in 2024 when they made the NLCS? Jose Iglesias and JD Martinez, they rallied out those guys all together. Mendoza did absolutely nothing. And how do I know that? Is because, what happened right before there? You had Jorge Lopez throw his glove into the stands. You think he has control over a player like that? No. The constant, guy's not hustling to first. Says, yeah, I talked to him. Yeah, you did. I'm sure you did. The way that he has handled the situation with Mark Vientos, and listen, Mark Vientos should be gone at the end of this year. If he comes back, that's complete malpractice. To be honest, if he survives the trade deadline, that's malpractice. But that's a different discussion. There's been multiple instances, where the players are just walking all over Carlos Mendoza. Mr. Swaggy V saying, I'm going to run on instinct, as the fast base runner that I am. Even though he's the slowest, and I mean slowest, 26-year-old you'll ever see. He says, I do it again. Blowing through a stop sign. Carlos Mendoza, we addressed it. Yeah. And he was in the lineup the next day. Brett Beatty in Chicago, 3 errors at first base, all costly, completely collapsed that game, saying, hey, I make those plays 10 times out of 10. Guess what, Brett? You didn't. In fact, you made them 0 times out of 3. Wasn't held accountable, in the lineup the next day. There's plenty of instances I can go to where he's not holding these players accountable. So you can't sit here and tell me, hey, Carlos Mendoza's innocent. The bullpen management, we've already talked about that already. The cookie cutter game planning, we've talked about this enough. Does Carlos Mendoza, in this current situation, deserve to lose his job? To be honest, if you were to ask me, I believe they probably should have just kept him for the rest of the year. Because there's no reason to fire him right now. You're 13 games under 500. You're one of the worst teams in all of baseball. It's not like it's going to get better. It's not going to get better. And if it does, I'd love to see it. But you're not coming back from this type of deficit. You're just not. At this current moment, this team are trade deadline sellers, even though they said they're not sellers. Yet. We'll get into that trade. You can't tell me that he's innocent. Let me get into the chat because I'm sure you guys have plenty of stuff to talk about in here. Carlos Guzman saying they fired the wrong guy. This is the only guy that you can fire right now. And that's basically all you can do. Stearns was not going to get let go during the season. If he does get let go, it will be after this season, which, again, I don't think he will be. I'm sorry to anyone. I just don't think it's going to happen. Do I believe that he should be? Yeah. And this is someone who has defended Stearns for a while. Defended a lot of his decisions. And to be honest, for most of them, I've been dead wrong. Daniel's saying it won't change anything. Like I said, I don't expect it to change anything either. I really don't. Why fire him? This is James. Why fire him when the season is officially over for this team? Yeah, exactly. That's what I don't get. Way too late. Way too late. Shouldn't have done so. Hornets saying Cohen will not fire Stearns, unfortunately. I don't think he's getting let go after this season. I feel like he's probably going to end up finishing out his contract. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but I don't know. Carlos saying, sup Carson, this move does absolutely nothing for the season. I'm there with you. Stevie Mack saying Mendoza could be a decent manager at some point, but he needs to be bench coach again and learns from someone legit, not Aaron Boone. I think Aaron Boone gets a decent amount of, he gets a decent amount of flack. I don't think he's perfect. At least the players do respect him. They don't respect Carlos Mendoza, and it showed. It really did show. Joe Saturn saying the Mets will make multiple trades and Green will evaluate what's left. Yeah, probably. And we will get into that replacement in a second. I'm just going to go through the chat here. Let's see. Jerry Blevins in an SNY video saying Mendoza did a great job managing the bullpen. Like, dude, what have you been watching for the first few months of the season? Yeah, I don't get it. I feel like everybody has a short-term memory. I don't know. Yeah. Of course, Mendoza's not innocent. He took money knowing he was a puppet. Yeah, listen. That's that. That's that. I mean, I'm not gonna say again. Let's see. This was the right choice. He's got worse year by year. It's a fact. That's true too. He didn't learn much. He really did not. Carson, does this mean no more Twinkie video? We'll still play it. Don't worry. Don't worry, guys. Don't worry. Let's see. Green's manager record is terrible. Yes, we'll get into that in a second. And this is one of the simple things of where I'm talking about it with the Mets media here, of the overall slurpathon that I'm hearing about from Carlos Mendoza. And listen, I'm sure that all these beat writers in some way do a great job, but there is just so many times where they just handle these situations in just the wrong fashion. And they present it in some way that is so ridiculous and so, like, simple-minded as well, to where they don't pay attention to any detail whatsoever. For you to come out and say, oh yeah, there's no blame, it's not his fault. This is the same argument we get into with, the players they let go in the offseason, where people tell me, oh, well, it wasn't the core's fault. They weren't the problem. Okay, but were they the solution? Did they solve anything? Like, what's the difference here? Is Mendoza the solution here? I don't think he is. He hasn't been for a majority of his tenure. If you break down the majority of his tenure here, this team is a losing baseball team. You had that one hot stretch from, the end of 2024 to 2025, but they weren't playing good baseball. They weren't playing good baseball to start off the year last year. And we were saying it time and time again. They were riding on the coattails of a very fragile rotation, as we all expected. It all fell apart. The offense was doing terrible. The defense was terrible. The base running was terrible. They weren't doing the little things correctly. And it imploded. They didn't do the little things correctly at the beginning of the season in 2024, too. A majority of his tenure here, they haven't played good baseball. And you're going to tell me, since he has a winning record as a Mets manager, you're going to tell me, oh, no, he's fine. He's a good guy. He does his taxes. Okay, big bad New York media. Okay, got it. Really got it. And listen, Stearns has even more fault in this. He does. And we're going to break that down as the season continues to wind down into its second half. But you cannot tell me that Carlos Mendoza is innocent in this entire thing. You absolutely cannot. Who will be replacing Carlos Mendoza? That will be Mets' current player development director, Andy Green. Now, Andy Green returned to the organization this year after he had multiple offers to go to other front offices. He personally, I think he's done a really good job with the player development. especially with a lot of the young players of how they have progressed through their minor league careers. However, him as a manager, that's a different story. For those of you who do not remember, he was the manager of the Padres from 2016 to the end of 2019. It did not go well at all. He was not good. There's some stuff that came out about him that, players were publicly really not, they really didn't like him. And to be honest, I'm really just not expecting him to be a savior at all. I really am not. Maybe there's things that he has learned, but who knows? Managerial record 274 and 366. His overall winning record, 8 games over 500. Exactly. This makes him look good for his next managerial job. And if he gets one, good luck to him. Good luck to him. To be honest, Carlos Mendoza, he seems like a really nice guy. He really does. He seems like a very down-to-earth guy. But to be honest, I think that, maybe a little too nice to his own fault. So again, Andy Green is not going to solve anything. He had multiple offers to join another front office. He stayed with the organization. I think probably for this reason. Because if Mendoza were to get let go, they would turn to either Andy Green. The other two guys that I thought they would possibly turn to, and we talked about this earlier on in the season, Kai Correa, of course, the bench coach, who I think has done a good job, but I just don't think he's ready for that type of role yet. And then there also was Gilbert Gomez, the Mets first base coach, former Brooklyn Cyclones manager. Last year, he managed them to a championship in high A. So they obviously go with the guy with experience to possibly clean some things up, even though Andy Green has not had a good tenure, especially as the Padres manager, as a major league manager. So I guess they're just basically going wing and a prayer here. If it happens, it happens. He's the interim manager. We're not guaranteed to bring him back next year. We'll see. Right now, in terms of Andy Green, we will see where it goes. I'm not expecting much. I'm really not expecting much. And I don't see this moving in any direction other than the direction it's moving in as of right now. He's basically just a new voice in that clubhouse. If they rally behind him, they rally behind him. I'm not expecting it to happen. Didn't Andy Green manage a rebuilding Padres team? It's whatever. Yeah, but there was some other stuff that came out about him where players were not very fond about how he was running things. Let's just keep it that way. There was some stuff that came out, but maybe we'll get into that if we go into a different direction. But again, this is an interim manager. How do you know he's been good as a bench coach for this team? There's been a few calls that he's made that were correct to make in the dugout to Carlos Mendoza. The pinch hitting Terrens in San Francisco. There was a few pinch hits with, Jared Young as well. Defensive substitutions that he's made. A lot of players have praised his ability to, do well with the infield defense. So, again, we'll see. We will see where that goes with that, but Kai Correa remains the bench coach. So, here's the deal. The way that this is being perceived, like I've already said, could it be the fact that he's not the issue? To be honest, I think it's too late to find out. But you just can't say that he's fully innocent. You just can't. And the way that the media is just going to bat for this guy right now just shows me they don't pay attention. They don't pay attention to what the games are. They just look at the box score and say, hey, We scored more points than the other team. We scored less points than the other team. This must be a good team. The quantity of wins, quality of wins. The quantity of losses, the quality of losses. You can't tell me that Carlos Mendoza is innocent in this. You just can't. I would never take you seriously if you did. Ever. And that's the thing, is that I know that they're using it as a shield to say, well, he had a winning record as a Mets manager, so he must be fine. So let's play that entire game once again. James says it right here. If anything, the Mets did Mendoza a favor and got him out of here before his record went below 500 for his time here. So if nothing is Mendoza's fault, does that mean the media is saying every single move is on the front office? Yeah, exactly. I guess they're saying that. And listen, I'm not saying that this team was constructed well and as worked out. No. But like, it goes to a point of like, they were the worst record in all of baseball. They've been the worst record of all of baseball since last June. So that record doesn't matter. But his overall record as a Mets manager is above 500. So, hey, he's doing a great job. He's doing a fantastic job. No, he isn't. You know, these guys in the media, they probably like Carlos Mendoza because he'll answer their softball questions constantly, like, what is your favorite color? What is your favorite topping on pizza? And they never actually press him on things that shouldn't have happened. Speaking of the Cubs, as we did play them back in Wrigley, let's not forget that whole thing with, Nico Horner. The fly ball to I forget what it was. The fly ball to right field. Not walking him as their hottest hitter in the lineup because he didn't want to put another runner on base and put in a double play when that run didn't even matter. Like, there's plenty of instances that not many of us can really just sit here and remember. And I could go through many of them. I could go through plenty of times where he has backed up a shitty decision, or when he has not held someone accountable, or when he's sent a message that you can do whatever the fuck you want in that clubhouse. We've played plenty of audio clips on this show of him showing oblivion. You can't sit here and tell me that he did not deserve to get fired. Just can't. You just cannot. Nearly impossible. Nearly impossible. You just can't. I don't think the front office helped Mendy, but the constant changing the batting lineup and bullpen management tells me at times he was winging it. How many bad decisions did he make that make us lose games? There probably was a good handful this year. The media doesn't press Stearns during the conferences either. Sure, they're just not very good. They don't get actual answers. It's all cookie cutter stuff. All cookie cutter stuff. That's all I can say. That's all I can say about it. They don't actually give you real answers or real questions. They just never have. They never have. So either way, Andy Green is your new manager for the rest of the year. 81 more games. Yes, we have 81 more games to go, even though this season has been an absolute nightmare. 13 games under 500. Now, what else happened this week? We also saw a move be made. The Mets, fresh off of right now firing their manager, right beforehand, after the third game of this series, they made a trade. That involving the longest tenured Met at the time, until he was dealt David Peterson, who has been traded to the Chicago Cubs in exchange for infield prospect Cole Mathis. Now, I do want to do a little bit of a rundown on Mathis. However, in terms of Peterson, we already talked about this before the season even started. He should have been traded in the offseason. They should have moved on. Instead, they balked back on it and said, hey, well, we need pitching depth, which at all that might be true. But I think we can all agree that David Peterson has arguably been the worst pitcher in all of baseball ever since being selected to an all-star game. And as someone as Stearns who seems to pay attention to those certain numbers or those under-the-hood facts, I'm surprised that he let this go on for as long as it did. Because we all know that under the hood, David Peterson does not have good stuff. David Peterson loses command of the strike zone. David Peterson can give you volume because he pitches to contact and he could get outs, but he needs the defense to be perfect behind him. And we all knew, or some of us knew, that even though he had a shiny ERA for a second, it was all going to fall apart. Because he's just not that good of a pitcher. He never really has been. He's had some good moments. I do say so. I do think that he has. I've been one of his biggest critics since day one. The guy was a first-round pick. It came with expectation. Did he live up to that? Somewhat, maybe. I don't know. Still wasn't relatively good. Still wasn't relatively consistent. Had some good years, had some really bad ones. And that's basically how you can say David Peterson's tenure ends here, as they trade him off to the Cubs for Cole Mathis. Let's get a little bit of a rundown. Cole Mathis, 22 years old. He is a corner infielder, mainly a first baseman, as he has logged 254 career innings at third base, only 44 at third base. He's 22 years old, 6'2", 210. He was a second-round pick by the Chicago Cubs back in 2024. The scout grades, average hit and power tools, but however, the power has definitely blossomed, especially because of his pull air percentage, where he lifts fly balls in the air and pulls them to the pull side to left field. 97th percentile among all minor league hitters this season at 25%. He underwent elbow surgery on his right elbow after the 2025 season. He is currently on the 7-day injured list, and he is expected to join High A Brooklyn upon activation from the minor league injured list. Now, you look at his season so far, it has been split among low A and high A. Low A, he was tearing the cover off of the ball, a 205 weighted runs created plus, and so far in high A, he's off to a good start as well. He's slashing 260, 371, 490, has 3 home runs, 22 RBIs, a 116 weighted runs created plus. So definitely a little bit inexperienced for his age, as he is yet to surpass like the 500 plate appearance point. However, the Mets do get a solid prospect here. Solid. I'm not going to say that he's, a future part of this team, but they do get a solid return for somebody in David Peterson who has been remotely useless for almost an entire calendar year. Cole Mathis, we will see what happens, but I am shocked to see this type of return. But it also comes to the point of, what is the vantage point in for the Cubs? And I'll get into that in a second. But in terms of Cole Mathis, he ranks, I think, now, if you're going to talk about pipeline, which again can be very inaccurate and very rebuffed, but right now he slots in at number 14th overall ranked prospect for the Mets, right behind Chris Suaro, who's their top catching prospect, and in between Antonio Jimenez, who has had himself a dreadful year. So Cole Mathis makes the farm system better, I'd say. I'm not expecting much, really not. He's definitely lost a lot of time due to the injuries, but a good return nonetheless. Good return nonetheless, especially for David Peterson, who to be honest, I thought we were just going to get cash because that's how pathetic of an arm David Peterson has been. So to get an actual breathing, functioning organism for David Peterson, well done. On the Cubs side, David Peterson is probably going to succeed in Chicago. He's probably going to do a really good job there. The main reason why I said that is because it's a good fit. It really is a good fit. He's a ground ball pitcher. You need ground ball pitchers at Wrigley to keep the ball on the ground. He still is good at getting ground balls. Also, the Cubs have one of the best infield defenses all in baseball. Personally, I think overall they have the best defense in all of baseball. Not just statistically, but just the overall range. They have strong arms in the outfield as well. They have fantastic defense up the middle with Horner and Swanson. We saw it during this series. So either way, it had to be done. David Peterson had to go. It was enough already. He spent 7 years, 7 seasons, if you want to say 6 seasons, considering it was the short season in 2020. That was his rookie year. He had some good. He had some bad. I am not depressed whatsoever of losing David Peterson. And I find it pathetic that he was the longest tenured Met going into this season. That now belongs to Francisco Lindor, by the way, if you guys did not know, if you want to know. So David Peterson, best of luck in Chicago. Thanks for the good. Fuck you for the bad. But either way, not a bad return. He finishes his Mets career with 690.2 innings pitched, 4.31 earned run average, a 9.2 wins above replacement. So we probably call this a hit in terms of where he was drafted. But still, I'm not going to plant my flag in what we're going to see because, again, there's plenty of stuff around David Peterson that, it didn't work out. It really didn't work out. Wasn't a good fit. And he should have been gone ages ago. He really should have. Really does seem to burn out towards the end of the year. I guess the Mets tried to harbor that this year by moving him to the bullpen a little bit, but this constant musical chairs of him going in and out of the bullpen, where he hasn't been good. He just has not been good for a while. And it seemed like the Mets just wanted to get rid of him. Because from the reports that we've been getting from our beat writers, Will Salmon reported about it. It was reiterated by, I think, John Heyman. Somebody else reiterated it, saying that this is not the start of a sell-off for the Mets. David Peterson just basically fell out of favor in New York. They wanted to get rid of him. They wanted to move on. Rightfully so. He's a pending free agent after this year. Again, he should have been traded in the offseason, considering the fortitude to sell high. But they didn't do so. Didn't do the same thing with Senga. A lot of guys who should have been traded at high value, especially when they served no purpose to the team. They needed pitching. So, listen, he's been a quality arm before. I understand why they kept him, but it comes to a point of where enough is enough already. We knew what David Peterson was, and at the rate that it was going, they needed to move on. They really did. Either way, Cole was another two-way player. Yes, I did see that. Cole Mathis has a nice swing, yet injury-prone and low ball. Yes, that is true. That is very true. Yes, Stearns will be talking to the media at 3 p.m., which will be after our stream is done. So everybody can tune into that. I'm sure everybody is very, very happy to see that. Let's see. Stearns needs to get rid of Vientos, Beatty, and Senga next. Yeah. I mean, I can add more guys to the list. I can tell you right now. But I do feel like, that generation of baby Mets or whatever we're going to call it, they got to move on from it. They really do. Or at least some of them. Beatty or Vientos. If you want to keep Mauricio and Alvarez around for another year, I get it. Still not confident in it. But we'll see. I was a big Peterson fan, but definitely got burnt out after the All-Star break. Yeah, last year, it was noticeable, definitely. I think that complete game was pretty much the end of him. The complete game shutout. Either way, he had some good, he had some bad. It was a mixed bag of stuff, pretty similar to Steven Matz. Before then, John Neese. And then we move on to another lefty who is actually going to be called up in his place, being Zach Thornton, who will be making his second MLB start tonight against the Phillies. Mauricio ain't much either. We haven't seen him play yet. That's the thing. Like, he probably isn't. Don't forget John Maine. Yep, beforehand. Like, the passing of the torch of the mediocre lefties, yes. But the point of emphasis here is the fact that, again, it doesn't seem like they have the mindset to sell right now. Do I think that this is the start of a sell-off? Kinda, yeah, but they're just going to sit here and say, well, we're not giving up on the season. They obviously aren't because they just fired Carlos Mendoza. But they're saying, oh, yeah, we need to make a change. You made it too late. We'll see what the manager talk becomes in the offseason. I'm sure we will get a bunch of brain-dead takes of former players that should be the manager. That would not help at all. But either way, good riddance to David Peterson. He needed to go. There's one more guy that we all know who I want gone. They need to move on from a lot of guys on this roster. There's a lot of dead weight. A lot. Way too much. David Peterson was a part of that. And now it's opening it up for some of the young guys as well. We'll see what Zach Thornton is able to do now that he's gotten some more AAA innings since his MLB debut, and he will pitch tonight. Watch Lindor get traded. I don't think that's going to happen, but we'll see what happens going forward. I don't know. They haven't acknowledged themselves as sellers yet. Season's not over yet, right? Technically not. But yeah, plenty of guys we can talk about. Let's get into this series. How about that? And I don't want to get into it because, to be honest, I don't want to talk about it because it was probably the worst display of baseball. However, we're a Mets channel. We're a Mets and analysis channel. We're a Mets podcast. Either way, guys, I'm sorry that I have to make you guys sit through 9 minutes of highlights from this series. I apologize, but hey, it's due diligence. I work pretty hard on these highlights to get them ready, so we're going to show them. Either way, here it is, this whole 4-game set. Games 78, 79, 80, and 81 of 162. Mets 4-game set with the Cubs. Roll the tape. Back home for a 4-game set against the Cubs, Game 1 of this series would be postponed into Wednesday for a doubleheader. In the first game played on the following day, Kodai Senga would make his second start off the injured list and was awful once again. Second inning, bases loaded, 1 out. Carson Kelly would draw a walk to force in a run, scoring Seiya Suzuki. Next batter, Dansby Swanson would plate Ian Happ with a sacrifice fly to left field, and following him, 2 on, 2 out, Peker Armstrong would launch a 3-run shot into the right center field bullpen, putting up a 5 spot in the second for Chicago. The Mets would respond in the home second. Bases loaded, 2 out, Francisco Alvarez would plate a pair with a 2-run single to center field, plating Brett Beatty and Marcus Semien. But Senga would give it back in the fourth. Runner on, 2 out, Dansby Swanson would launch a 2-run homer to the left field balcony, putting Chicago back up by 5. Senga would exit shortly after for Cioniel Perez, who would finish the frame and close the book on Senga. 3 2/3 innings pitched, 3 hits, 7 earned runs, 5 walks, 6 strikeouts on 98 pitches. Perez would get the 5th and the 6th, posting back-to-back 1-2-3 innings with a strikeout. Tobias Myers would come on for the 7th and toss a scoreless inning, working around 2 walks. In the home 7th, 1 out, Francisco Alvarez would launch his 6th home run of the year to the short deck in left center field, getting the Mets within 4. Myers would come back out for the 8th and struggle. Runner at second, 2 out, Carson Kelly would trade places with Nico Horner, lifting an RBI double that would land fair right in front of the diving Jared Young in left field. Next batter, Dansby Swanson would do the same with an RBI double of his own down the left field line, scoring Carson Kelly to make it 9-3 Chicago. AJ Minter would pitch the 9th and toss a scoreless inning, working around a hit and an error with a strikeout. The Mets would get some garbage time runs in the 9th against Jaden Murray. Runner at second, 2 out, Carson Benj would line an RBI single into right field, scoring Brett Beatty. And next batter, Bo Bichette would launch his 9th home run of the year to the opposite field bullpen, getting the Mets within 3. But that would be all she wrote, as the Cubs would take the series opener 9-6. In Game 1 of the doubleheader and Game 2 of the series, the Mets would grab the lead in the 4th inning against right-hander Javier Assad. Runner on, no one out. Jared Young would slug his 5th home run of the year, a 2-run shot, this one to the opposite field, giving the Mets the early lead. Next batter, Francisco Alvarez would follow suit with a home run of his own, a towering blast to center field, his 7th of the year and 2nd of the series, giving the Mets a 3-0 lead after 4. Nolan McLean would make the start and was very sharp for the first 4 2/3 innings, but he'd completely fall apart from there. Runner on, 2 out, former Met Michael Conforto would get Chicago on the board with an opposite field RBI double down the left field line, scoring Pete Crow Armstrong. Next batter, Michael Busch would tie the game, launching a 2-run homer off the facing of the second deck in right field. And in the next inning, it would get even worse for McLean. First and third, 2 out, Dansby Swanson would strike once again, a 3-run shot over the Great Wall of Flushing in left center field, giving the Cubs a 4-3 lead. McLean would finish the 6th and end his day with 6 innings pitched, 7 hits, 6 earned runs, 2 walks, 9 strikeouts on 104 pitches. Jonathan Pintaro would pitch the 7th and toss a 1-2-3 inning with a strikeout, but come back out for the 8th and make the deficit even worse. Bases loaded, 1 out, Dansby Swanson, once again, this time a grand slam to left center, his 3rd home run of the series, his 7th RBI of the game, putting the Cubs up by 7. Austin Warren would pitch the 9th and toss a 1-2-3 inning with 2 strikeouts, but the Mets would end up dropping back-to-back games after the Cubs would score 10 unanswered runs in 4 innings, 10-3. In Game 2 of the doubleheader, Sean Manaea would make his 3rd start of the year and face trouble in the 2nd inning. Runner at second, no one out. Carson Kelly would give the Cubs the lead with an RBI double to left field, scoring Nico Horner. However, the Mets would respond in the home 2nd. Francisco Alvarez would tie the game with his 8th home run of the year, a solo shot to left center, and his 3rd home run of the series. Later in the frame, runner on, 2 out, A.J. Ewing would blast his 3rd home run of the year, a 420-foot shot to the back of the visitors' bullpen, a 2-run shot to give the Mets a 3-1 lead after 2. However, fast forward to the 4th, Manaea would get into some trouble again. First and third, no one out, Pedro Ramirez would slash an RBI single to the opposite field, scoring Nico Horner. Next batter, Dansby Swanson would tie the game with an RBI bloop single to left field, plating Carson Kelly. Next up, first and third, still nobody out, Pete Crow Armstrong would give the Cubs the lead with an RBI infield single, popping a bunt over the head of Bo Bichette at third base, scoring Pedro Ramirez. Manaea would exit right after for Huskar Brazaban, who would strike out 3 batters in a row to retire the side, closing the book on Manaea. 3+ innings pitched, 6 hits, 3 earned runs, 1 unearned run, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts on 86 pitches. In the bottom of the 4th, Mark Vientos would lead off the inning with a solo home run to left field, his 10th of the year, tying the game at 4 after 4. Brazaban would come back out for the 5th and toss a 1-2-3 inning with a strikeout, but Brooks Raley would get the 6th and was not himself. Runner at second, no one out. Dansby Swanson, once again, this time an RBI triple over the head of Brett Beatty in right field and off the wall, plating Pedro Ramirez to give the Cubs the lead. Later on in the inning, first and third, Matt Shaw would ground into a force out at second base. After Marcus Semien would bobble a line drive off of his glove, Dansby Swanson would come in to score, 6-4 Cubs. To the bottom of the sixth, one out in the inning, Bo Bichette would launch his 10th home run of the year, a solo shot, getting the Mets within one. Luke Weaver would get the seventh and work around a leadoff walk and a one-out error for a scoreless inning with a strikeout and inducing a 6-4-3 double play to end the inning. A.J. Minter would pitch the eighth and run into some trouble due to the defensive blunders behind him. Runner at second, one out. Pico Armstrong would ground one to first base. Mark Vientos would make a diving stop but throw wide of A.J. Minter's glove, cutting across to cover first. Pedro Ramirez would come in to score, extending the Cubs' lead to 7-5. Devin Williams would get the ninth and also get plagued by his defense as well. First and third, two out. Pedro Ramirez would drive in Nico Horner with a bloop RBI single that would land over the head of Marcus Semien in shallow right field. 8-5 Cubs. Next batter, Dansby Swanson. Once again, second and third, still two out, would drive in a pair with a two-run single to left field, his 14th and 15th RBIs of the series, as the Mets would drop their third game in a row to the Cubs, committing 6 errors in the game, all on the infield, 10-5. And in the series finale, Freddie Peralta would make the start and was much better, but he'd run into some trouble in the sixth after some shoddy defense behind him. Runner at second, one out. Former Met Michael Conforto would open up the scoring with an RBI single to right field, scoring Dansby Swanson. Later on, runner at first, two out. Alex Bregman would slash one down the right field line and into the corner. Carson Bench would have trouble playing it off the sidewall as Conforto would come around to score all the way from first, as Bregman would go to third. Next batter, Ian Happ would plate Bregman on an RBI single past the diving Mark Vientos and into right field, putting up a 3-spot in the sixth for Chicago. Austin Warren would come on with 2 on and 2 out and strike out Miguel Amaya to close the book on Peralta. 5 2/3 innings pitched, 5 hits, 0 earned runs, 3 unearned runs, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts on 98 pitches. However, the Mets would fight back in the home sixth. Runner at second, 2 out. Pinch hitter Eric Wagaman would launch his second home run as a Met to the left field balcony, a 2-run shot, getting the Mets within 1. Warren would come back out for the seventh and toss a scoreless inning, working around a leadoff walk with a strikeout, as after stretch time with the Mets still down 1, Jared Young would tie the game with a solo shot to the right center field alley, his 6th home run of the year. Luke Weaver would get the 8th and strike out the side on 11 pitches, posting his 22nd consecutive scoreless inning. Devin Williams would get the 9th and toss a 1-2-3 inning with a strikeout, sending this game to extras. Brooks Raley would get the 10th along with the ghost runner, and with 1 out in the inning, Pete Crow Armstrong would give the Cubs the lead with an RBI double down the right field line and into the corner, scoring pinch runner Matt Shaw. Raley would stop the bleeding from there, sending it to the home 10th, allowing just the 1 run. The Mets would end up getting the ghost runner to third with 2 out, but Carson Bench would ground out to third base to end it, as the Cubs would complete a 4-game sweep of the Mets at Citi Field, 4-3. The Mets are now 34-47 on the year, losers of 5 straight, set to continue their homestand tonight against the Phillies at 7:10 p.m. Eastern Time. All right, so I apologize for having to have everybody sit through that. That was a 9-minute video. Again, I sincerely apologize because it was just complete disgusting baseball. You start with game 1. Kodai Senga is fucking terrible. Kodai Senga needs to go. They announced that he is going to be moving to the bullpen, which is an absolute joke. I am praying that when Christian Scott comes back and gets activated off of the injured list, that Kodai Senga is the corresponding move. I don't know who else would be, possibly. I'm sure they'll find a way to keep Kodai Senga here because for some reason he has dirt on this organization. He's garbage. We saw it right there after that 3-run homer, him already boo-hooing into tears like the soft little bitch that he is. And yeah, he's terrible. It's done. The guy has an earned run average over 10, and the fact that, again, the Mets shooting themselves in the foot, Carlos Mendoza, formally fired just a few hours ago, telling us, oh yeah, maybe he'll be in some high leverage situations. Maybe he'll be in the medium leverage. He'll be out of the bullpen. Why? For what reason? Why? What the hell did he do to deserve that? But for some reason, he's still here. Some reason he's still here. Who knows? Maybe he isn't moving to the bullpen and he's already pitched his last game as a Met. But we all know that even if he goes to the bullpen, he's going to need his little 10-day rep and build up. And then he's going to whine about, oh, no, I see myself as a starting pitcher. Yeah, we know that's going to happen. We all know that's going to happen. He's a loser. He's terrible. He needs to go. There's no reason as to why he should be here. He's done. He's finished. His career here is over. I don't know where the hell he ends up going. But again, that's another indictment on Stearns allowing this to go on for as long as it has. The doubleheader. First game. Mets get ahead 3-0. Give us maybe a little bit glimmer of a hope. And then, like I said on the watch-along stream, I feel like he's just going to give it right back because Nolan McLean seems to just not be able to do anything with run support. He does so. He allows 6 unanswered runs, and he completely falls apart. Still able to go through the 6 innings, looked sharp for 4 2/3, and then he just completely disappeared. Absolutely disappeared. It was unacceptable. Game 3. Oh, my God. Game 3. Oh, whew. 6 errors. 6 errors. The first time that the Mets have had errors from all of their infielders in a game since 1962, the inaugural season, the year that goes down in infamy as one of the worst winning percentages in the history of the game. The Mets are doing nods to the worst Mets team of all time right now. And that was the point where I'm like, okay, you know what? We're done here. 6 errors in the field. 6. Mark Vientos is terrible. Mark Vientos at first base is not going to work out. Mark Vientos here. He's got to go. Marcus Semien. It really pains me to say it. It really does. Because Marcus Semien, one of the best defensive second basemen in all of baseball, won the Gold Glove. Then he just completely, he has no ability whatsoever. He has no ability, no defensive ability. We know where that bat is gone. The bat's not great anymore. And he's just been a net negative on this team. And it sucks so much because I'm a huge fan of Semien, seeing what we have seen. Lindor gets an error as well. Take that as you will. He's back off the injured list. Did not play in the final game, which we saw and eventually expected. Bo Bichette, I think, had a throwing error, but I think I blame more on Vientos. Same thing happened in the final game of this series. Mauricio had a throwing error that led to those 3 runs coming across against Peralta in the 6th. It looked more of an error on Vientos, but hey, it's Mark Vientos. He's Swaggy V. You know, he does what he wants. But either way, just an abysmal series altogether. The hitting, the situational hitting, horrible. Absolutely horrible. Couldn't get anything going whatsoever. This team was so pathetic that in the series finale last night, their best offense came off the bench. Jared Young tied the game. You had Eric Wagaman, a 2-run homer. And that was it. That was all you got. They were 2 for 12 with runners in scoring position. Situational hitting was terrible. And there goes that. There goes that. So awful. Just awful. I don't know how else to break it down other than the fact that that was some of the most embarrassing baseball I've ever seen this team play. And I was live for every single watch along. You guys were here with me. And we had to watch it for 4 straight days. 3 straight days, sorry. 4 straight games. Because, yeah, of course, we had the rain. It was so brutal. Beyond brutal. Now, Marcus Semien, there may be a reason as to why. Maybe he just has not been playing well. But that also is a mishandling by this team, and we'll get into that in a second. Either way, let's get into the studs and duds of this series. Players that have been good, players that were bad in these 4-game stretch. The stud category. Francisco Alvarez had a really good series offensively. We can't deny it. Homered in 3 of these 4 games. Looked locked in fairly well at the plate. However, I'm not investing into it. Because I know of how streaky of a player he can be. I know. I really do. By default, I can't give Freddie Peralta the flowers because of the blow up afterwards, but that really wasn't his fault. All of those runs were unearned. You could say Freddie Peralta. I will say that the adjustment he made of going over, pitching over his head, it looks like he's, maybe trying to fight off the tipping allegations or whatever. But either way, he looked a lot sharper. Got ahead in the count a lot more, throwing more strikes, looked a little bit more like Freddie Peralta, which is good. Benj had a good series as well. He did have that one mess up last night that costed them a run, but it seemed like pretty much everybody in the field had defensive miscues. 6 errors didn't even do it justice because there was plenty of kicking the ball around, missed catches, not being able to get to certain spots, miscommunications in the infield. You see stuff like that and you're like, oh, why was the manager fired? Why was the manager fired? I don't get it. Carlos Mendoza, he does his taxes correctly. Yeah, so there's that. The dud side. Simeon, like I already said, awful series for him. Defensively, offensively, obviously he hasn't gotten going at all. And then, of course, there's Kodai Senga, who I just don't want to talk about anymore. And I am praying is gone. Praying. Because if you look at the current roster right now of how it is set up, they're probably going to find a way to send Thornton down to keep Kodai Senga around. But you look at this right now, you're not sending down Devin Williams. Luke Weaver's not going anywhere. Raley's not going anywhere. Brazaban's not going anywhere. Minter's not going anywhere. Warren's not going anywhere. Maybe it's Cioniel Perez. I don't know. Tobias Myers can't be optioned because he's already been optioned. So there has to be a difference between there. So I'm hoping Kodai Senga is that guy. I'm hoping that he is designated for assignment and I never have to see him pitch in a Mets uniform ever again. I've already been done with him, beyond him, done with him. But yeah, there's that. Speaking of rapid fire stories, Marcus Semien has been placed on the injured list due to a left hip flexor. Ronnie Mauricio was recalled from AAA Syracuse as the corresponding move. Daniel Duarte was recalled from AAA Syracuse as the corresponding move for David Peterson getting traded to the Cubs. He also was just optioned today for Zach Thornton, as it was pretty much expected. Juan Soto exited Tuesday's game due to lower left back tightness. He felt the discomfort while swinging the bat in the 5th inning. We all saw it. Did not play in either of Wednesday's games versus the Cubs. He returned to the lineup last night as the designated hitter. Christian Scott is expected to be activated off the injured list to start tomorrow's game versus the Phillies, as he was eligible to come off the injured list tomorrow. He was on the IL 2 weeks ago due to a right hip impingement. He's been throwing bullpens. He seems to be good. Jorge Polanco has begun running drills this week. It's still to be determined because he's had good and bad games regarding the discomfort. He's been dealing with an Achilles injury since the first week of the season, and he's been sidelined on the IL since mid-April due to a wrist contusion. Luis Robert Jr., he's alive. He's getting very, very close to full speed and has continued to participate in full baseball activity this week. Timeline is still unclear for his return or for when he plays rehab games. He's been on the IL since April 30th due to lumbar spine disc herniation. Jared Oliva, outfielder, has been claimed off of waivers by the Mets from San Francisco. He's a former 7th round pick by the Pirates back in 2017 MLB draft. Has posted a 603 OPS this season for AAA Sacramento, which is the AAA affiliate for the Giants. He was designated for assignment by the Giants on June 20th, which was last week. Zach Short has been designated for assignment as the corresponding move for the activation of Francisco Lindor off the injured list. He went 1 for 8 in his second stint with a walk, and he also pitched a scoreless inning. You guys remember we were getting blown out earlier this week in Philly, and he pitched a scoreless inning. It was the only scoreless inning by the Mets pitching staff that night. It's hilarious. And of course, this was his second stint. He made the 2024 opening day roster out of training camp. It did not go well. He ended up getting designated for assignment. And then, of course, bingo bango, Jose Iglesias arrives. Either way, some more stuff. Tyrone Taylor is back from his rehab assignment. He's been activated off of the 10-day IL. So he was also rehabbing along with Francisco Lindor and Ronnie Mauricio. So he is finally back. MJ Melendez has been optioned down to AAA. So is Daniel Duarte, like I said. And then Andy Green, who is our interim manager, he will be wearing number 70 in the dugout. So no, he will not be taking any number of recollection. I don't know who wore 70 the last time, but either way, those are the more announcements. Now, one more thing I want to add. Marcus Semien goes on the injured list, which, again, could that be the situation right now? Could that be the reason as to why he has not been great defensively? He's lost a step. He's not running the bases as quickly. Maybe it has something to do with the hitting, even though the hitting hasn't been good over the last 2 seasons. Could that be the reason? Maybe. However, the now fired manager, Carlos Mendoza, said, hey, Marcus Semien has been dealing with this for weeks now. Marcus Semien is a guy who prides himself in playing every day. One of the main reasons why I like him. One of my main reasons why I liked him when he was in Oakland, why he was in Texas. But this guy is 36 years old. You played him in both games of this doubleheader. He hasn't missed a single game yet. The first game he missed was last night. Why is he playing? What is he playing for? I don't know if this is a bruised ego thing with a guy like Marcus Semien. I have absolutely no idea. But once again, another example of this team handling things just the wrong way. Shooting themselves in the foot for no reason. Allowing Jorge Polanco to move and continue on, even though he's been dealing with an Achilles injury. And then putting him on the injured list after he has a wrist injury, which is less serious than Achilles. The way they've handled it. Awful, stupid, dumb. What else can you say? Why was he playing? It's not like he was doing well. If it's affecting his performance, it's affecting his performance. He shouldn't be playing. Am I going nuts here? Am I wrong? He shouldn't be playing if he's hurt. That makes absolutely no sense. Why is he playing? Semien can stay on the IL. Again, I don't even know how long it's going to be. But listen, he's old now. He's older. He's 35 years old. He shouldn't be playing every day. If he's been dealing with that for weeks, why is he in the lineup every day? Polanco was seen running the bases. See you in February, Polanco. Polanco was seen running the bases. But we also got a report afterwards that he was limping in the Mets clubhouse from Chelsea James of SNY, saying that he was limping in the clubhouse today. So, again, at this point, you might as well just shut him down for the rest of the year. So, I mean, listen, the way that they've handled the health of these players, the way that they signed players that were injury prone, the way that they haven't been able to evaluate those things, and they're going to have to change it, whether it's going to be David Stearns or not. The sad part is that after all of the bragging that I hear, oh, the Mets kept me healthy. The Mets have such a fantastic medical staff, and they do such a fantastic job. Where? Where? Stop trying to feed me fluff. Stop feeding me that crap. When we know it's not true. You're kidding no one. Ridiculous. Just absolutely ridiculous. I don't know what else to say anymore. I don't. I really don't. We've already said enough at this point. I guess we have to sit here and move on because at this point, your manager's gone. Your longest tenured Met is gone. Tear rolling down my face for that. And the Mets get swept. They're 13 games under 500 for the first time under David Stearns, despite how bleak it has been. So we'll see where it carries. And hopefully they figure something out because this is horrible. Horrible. Either way, let's get into this upcoming Mets versus Phillies series. The Mets just played the Phillies in Philly before returning home for that 4-game set to get completely embarrassed at home. And they continue this 7-game homestand. We already know the deal with the Phillies, obviously. We just saw them. They have been staging some comebacks recently. They scored 10 unanswered runs against the Nationals last night. They're now 9 games over 500. They're second in the NL East. And they continue to roll under Don Mattingly. So we'll see what the Mets are going to be able to do so. And we'll see with these pitching matchups tonight, which I will pop right here on the screen for everybody. Starting off with Game 1, which will be tonight, as Zach Thornton will make his second MLB start of his career in the series opener, replacing the recently traded David Peterson, his spot in the rotation. He'll face former Met Zach Wheeler. First pitch is tonight at 7:10 p.m. Eastern Time on Pix 11. Game 2, Christian Scott is expected to come off the injured list and make his return to the Mets rotation to pitch tomorrow. He'll face the 28-year-old right-hander. He'll face the 28-year-old right-hander Alan Rangel. First pitch is tomorrow afternoon at 4:10 p.m. Eastern Time on SNY. As for Game 3, the Mets have yet to announce their starter. We'll see what it ends up being. Whoever it may be, they will face the 28-year-old left-hander Jesus Luzardo. First pitch is Sunday afternoon at 1:40 p.m. Eastern Time on SNY. Like we said, we just played this Phillies team in Philly. Bryce Harper has been red hot recently. Kyle Schwarber having himself in another fantastic year. They are going to be facing a new pitcher in Alan Rangel, who it looks like doesn't have as much experience at the major league level, only pitched 19 innings of his entire career. This is his second stint with this team. So far, he's been okay. If I can bring up the new look for him. He's kind of pretty much a minor league farmhand for them. Big high arm angled, 70 degrees, 4-pitch guy, changeup, 4-seam mainly. Kind of a swing man, I would say. So, we will see what happens there. But either way, that's basically your full-on matchups for pitching. On that side, again, we don't really need to get over that much right now. Yohan Duran, their closer, he's been dominant. Tim Meza has been good for them. Orion Kirkring has had a good season. Yeah, so we're not going to be facing Nola or Sanchez in this series. We'll see what happens. We will see what happens going forward. Guys to look after in this series, especially on the Mets side. For the Mets side, obviously. Zach Thornton is obviously someone to look out for. Second MLB start. Remember, he made his MLB debut in DC about a few weeks ago. Didn't go the best. But, they just kind of fed him to the wolves after 2 AAA starts. That's one to look out for. And then I guess we're just going to look for Lindor and Soto, basically, to see what they can do together, because they have not been able to do anything together. They've played like 9 games together all season. So we will see. Either way, very eventful. Very eventful 4 days for the Mets. We've had some other stuff come up as well that I'm going to talk about in a second. First and foremost, this is a reminder to tune in tonight, tomorrow, and Sunday afternoon for watch-along coverage of the Mets versus Phillies series, hosted by the newest members of Mets Weekly, Evan and Matt. 10 minutes before first pitch, 7 p.m. Eastern Time tonight, 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow, and 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Sunday, barring any delay that is needed for live play-by-play commentary, banter, out-of-pocket jokes, and some special guests along the way. It all starts tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 minutes before first pitch. We hope to see you guys there, which have pretty much become which has pretty much become the vent session for everybody. Because again, this team is just playing such disgusting baseball that is on an insane, disgraceful level. But here's some good news, I will say, as we come towards the end, about to get off here. Danel Nunez just started up a rehab assignment for Low A Port St. Lucie. Key piece to this bullpen in 2024. He has dealt with injuries ever since the second half of 2024, underwent Tommy John surgery. So hopefully everything is all good. But, we will see, where it comes from there, but we can definitely use him in that bullpen if he does come back. I'm not expecting him to come back this season or really for them to go crazy about it, but we'll see. We also saw some latest CBA news, which has pretty much become, it's the mess before the mess even starts. I think at this point, listen, there was a tweet that went out yesterday. I don't know if this was from, let me see if I can pull it up. Yeah, this was from Jesse Rogers of ESPN. Breaking, saying that in its next CBA, the league is proposing a max contract length of 5 years for free agent players switching teams, 6 years to retain their own players, no deferred contracts. Qualifying offer is gone too. Also, 5 years to free agency for players 30 or older. Okay. So here's the thing. We know that this is going to be ugly. We've already hinted about this, of talking about, hey, we're probably not going to have baseball next season, or we're probably going to have a shortened season because it's that ugly right now between the MLB and the MLBPA. This isn't a horrible concept, but it's so stupid for baseball. Basically just, validating the owners of 162 games, giving them more money, obviously. I don't think that there should be a contract limit, obviously, mainly because of overall payroll, but it's more of just the fact of buyer's remorse. So it's basically just catering to the owner's pocket, not just because of the money or they keep the money or whatever. it caters to the owner's pocket here, where it's like, okay, you know what, you make a bad signing, well, it'll probably be gone in less years in comparison to 10 years. That's probably not going to stay. I don't think that's ever going to get agreed upon, personally. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. 6 years to retain your own players. I don't know about that. The qualifying offer is gone. It should be gone because that is the one thing I do agree with. The deferred contract as well. I think the Dodgers have pretty much put a stake in that. But also the fact of the qualifying offer too being gone, that has to go because it slows down the free agent market. I think we can all agree. But we'll see what happens. In terms of what they want to do here. Shout out to Caution Heat. High Waves ahead. $10 super sticker. Shout out to you. Thank you, Caution, saying we suffer together. Thanks for the videos, my guy. We're always here. We are always here, no matter what. Yeah, Caution, it's been a while since we've seen you in the chat here, so good to see you here and again. I'm not going to get into the pool hole stuff, guys. I'm just not, because we still have 81 games to play. Maybe we will talk about it when the offseason comes. But listen, we'll see. We finally got someone to talk about Carlos Mendoza in an honest way. Mike Mayer from Mets Mirais said Carlos Mendoza is a good guy and he will get another job, but he's not just a scapegoat here. He wasn't a good manager. He was a poor in-game he was poor in-game in pretty much every area you could think about to evaluate a manager. He also went on to say, I think three things can be true. The Mets needed to fire Mendoza. Argument can be made for during last offseason for a variety of reasons, including the recent sloppy play and poor in-game decision-making. 2, the bad run of the Mets going on the back of last season is far more on the shoulders of David Stearns than Mendoza. And then 3, injuries have killed the Mets, and that combined for a couple of key players completely underperforming is even tougher to overcome when the manager and Pobo have been underwhelmed. So there's that. Good tweet there by Mike Mayer. I will give him a like and a retweet there. Maybe, somebody in Mets media actually not completely bending over backwards for Carlos Mendoza and saying, hey, this is not, this is not right. Carlos Mendoza did nothing wrong. He's okay. He's amazing. He does his taxes. So there's that. Some other stuff. I'm not going to open up this entire can of worms here, but for the Mets fans who were chanting Pete Alonso during, the third game of this series, you're a loser. You really are. Anyone who continues to bring up Pete Alonso is a loser because he wouldn't have fixed anything. We've talked about this already. If Pete Alonso were here, they'd probably be, three games better than they are right now. The pitching is still a nightmare. The defense is still a nightmare, something that he contributed to for years. Enough already. I get you can be mad at David Stearns all you want, but imagine being attached to this still. I'm sorry. You're a loser. You can chant whatever the hell you want. I don't care. I'm not telling you how to fan, but you're a loser if you do it. I'm sorry. It's just embarrassing. It really is embarrassing to see stuff like that. Mets fans are really attached. Really that attached. It's sad. It really is sad. They're actually just full on feral for this guy. When they would not, again, they're full on feral when, again, all they've done was overachieve with him. So they would continue to underachieve this year. Guaranteed. What is the difference between this team being 11 games under 500 instead of 13 games under 500? What's the difference between that right now? Would they have had a 12-game losing streak? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Pete Alonso may have won them one game there. But they also had separate 7-game losing streaks with Pete Alonso. Just a joke. Complete joke. I'm sorry. Mets fans, I'm sorry. You have every right to be upset, but I feel like a lot of the stuff that they are upset about, like, there's just no merit for it. It's just so aggravating. It really is just aggravating to see how this is the mindset, and this is how things get misconstrued the way that they are. Pete Alonso's not helping this team. Brandon Nimmo's not helping this team. No one's helping this team right now. They wouldn't be any better. They showed that they can't be any better for 7 years. The revisionist history's got to go. The revisionist history of this fan base is embarrassing, people. Embarrassing. I don't know. Maybe there's somebody else that can explain it in a little bit more of a heartfelt way and tell me, hey, I'm completely wrong. But there's no reason. There's no reason to even fight this anymore. No reason. It's ridiculous. It's just a joke. Complete joke. I don't even know what to say. Just constant Mets media here. Constant Mets media. All I'm seeing. That's all I'm seeing right now. The constant Mets media right now. Just the corny blurbs, oh yeah, someone had to pay the price. Ooh, yep. Do fans forget Pete Alonso's offense would... No, they forget that. Yeah, exactly. They forget that too. He was one of the worst hitters in all of baseball for the second half last year. The revisionist history. Revisionist history. Like, that's not how I remember it. I know winning can heal all, and recency bias exists. But it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous how people just completely can't identify it. The Orioles are struggling to reach 500. And you think giving Pete... Exactly. You think giving Pete $155 million right now would help your squad right now? It has a higher payroll. Everyone says, hey, I want pitching. I want pitching. I want pitching. You're not going to get any pitching if you overspend on these certain positions. We've had this conversation so many goddamn times. But, like, I'm sorry. You're a loser if you're chanting. You're chanting Pete Alonso. Because let's not forget, he chose to hire Scott Boras. He chose to turn down 7 years, $158 million. He chose to do that. He chose to opt out after last year. If he loved you guys so much and he was such a victim of time, why'd he opt out? I don't know if it's maybe just me because maybe it's just me from my perspective where I already mourned him leaving the second that he hired Boras, considering the type of player he is. But hey, listen, what's done is done, folks. What's done is done. I'm telling you right now, Pete Alonso is not the make or break in the Mets season right now. He really isn't. And for those of you who just can't get it, you can't get it. I get it about the whole situation with Jorge Polanco. I get it. I understand that. But acting like Pete Alonso's a solution, just to put in comparison to Pete Alonso, To say that he's a solution in comparison to Jorge Polanco is a fucking joke. That's a joke. Alonso was on the market for what, 2 years, and got one desperate team to give him 5 years. Thank you. Exactly. People just forget. He's a victim of David Stearns. He's a victim of the time. I was also a victim when I saw you collapse 5 times in 7 seasons. To see you underperform. To see you give bullshit answers to the media. Or act like an idiot. I'm done with it, man. Move on already. I think the chant was more to embarrass Stearns. You can embarrass Stearns on so many different other levels because he's embarrassed himself all year. Some just don't get it. I don't get it. I really don't. Either way, we'll see where we go. Under the management now of Andy Green, as we say goodbye to Carlos Mendoza. Guys, don't worry. We'll still play the clips during the watch-alongs and everything. But yeah, you'd hope it can turn everything around, but I'm not really going to sit here and just say that everything's going to be fixed now. I think it's too late that they did this. I really do. Too late for them to trade Peterson. Too late for them to fire Mendoza to salvage anything. And it basically just gives you a representation of how they've handled things. Well, now, David Stearns, you've got a clear shot at you. There's no one to use as a shield now. So he's going to get the heat as well. Either way, I'm going to get off here, guys. Lots happened this week. Maybe it'll cool down. Maybe it'll get better. I'm not counting on it. 13 games under 500. We will see you guys later for the watch-along stream. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the conversation. For those of you watching or listening on playback, you want to join the conversation live in the future, make sure to turn on those post notifications to not miss when we go live. Make sure to follow Mets Weekly on X and on TikTok. Follow all of us individually. The links are all in the description. Finally, let's go Mets. 81 games to go, guys. We'll see you guys either later tonight or whenever that next time may be.